Welcome back to another Photoshop lesson for this month's topic, the basics of Photoshop. In today's lesson, we are going to be focusing on using rulers and guidelines to help us create spaces or to help us measure out spaces on our different elements for design. Now, rulers and guidelines are something that I use pretty frequently when I am setting up different pages or trying to figure out exactly where to put my journaling on things like my photos or my journaling cards. So these are things that you're going to see me using periodically throughout the rest of the year's videos. Now, I want to show you where you can find the rulers and the guidelines and how to use them for both Photoshop Creative Cloud and Photoshop Elements. So let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. First, we're going to be starting inside of the Photoshop Creative Cloud program, which is what I have here on my screen. Now, in order to see the rulers, we do need to have a document open. Now, this could be a document that you want to work on, such as a photo or a journaling card, something that you might already have in your files, or this could be a completely new canvas, which is what I'm going to be working with today since I really don't need a journaling card to illustrate this. We're just going to use a blank canvas. So I'm going to start by opening up a new canvas. For me, I am using my hotkeys Control N or Command N in order to open up my new document menu. From here, I can select any of the different sizes to work with. Since the 6x4 is what currently is in my preset details, I'm just going to go with that. So we're going to go a 6" by 4" canvas at 300 pixels per inch, and I will hit the create button. So I've got my canvas opened. As soon as I opened up my canvas, you may have noticed that we have this ruler that is set up at the top and down the side of my screen. This is showing me that starting at 0, which is this point right here, that my canvas is a total of 6 inches wide and 4 inches tall. So this is my measurement status of my page. Okay, let's head over to Elements and open it up there so you can see the rulers inside of Elements as well. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to open a new blank file. Let's make this the exact same as the other one. So 6 inches by 4 inches at 300 pixels per inch, and we're going to hit OK. This is going to populate a new screen for us, and you will notice that when this one opens up, there is actually no rulers showing up. So to find my rulers, I want to go for this one. I remember this one is a little bit different. So let me quickly remember where the rulers are. It is, right here in View. Okay, so to see the rulers, we're going to go up to the View menu and then down to where it says Rulers. When I click on that, the exact same thing shows up. So starting at 0 here, and it goes to 6 inches, and then starting at 0, and it goes down to 4. In Photoshop Creative Cloud, it is also possible that your rulers may not show up, and in the same way, you're going to go to View and Rulers in order to have them shown. So if I were to click this now, my rulers would disappear. I'm going to go back up to View and Rulers to bring them back up. Or if you want to use a hotkey, you can use Control or Command and the letter R for Rulers. So this is really just to help me gauge the size of my document. From here, I can now use guidelines to help me measure out different distances on my canvas. So let's say that I want to create a journaling card where the top third is a design, is some kind of pattern, and the last third is my journaling spot. So maybe what I want to do is create this top portion to be, let's call it 2.5 inches. And then the bottom portion would then be 1.5 inches, right? So in order to measure this out and visually see it on my canvas, what I'm going to do is bring my pointer up into the ruler section and click inside the ruler. Then I'm going to drag down, and you're going to see this line here. I'm going to drag down a line until I get to the 2.5-inch mark. Now inside of Creative Cloud, you can see this little tiny window that lets me know the measurement that I'm at. So right now it says 2.5. So that means that I am 2.5 inches down on my canvas, and I'm going to let go. When I deselect my mouse, it creates this blue line. So that shows me that this up here is 2.5 inches. This down here is 1.5 inches. Now let's say that I wanted to stamp something out here in the bottom left corner. And I know that that stamp is going to be roughly 1.5 inches wide. So I need to leave a space that's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, right? So then I can come over to the side ruler, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to click and hold and then drag a line until I get to the 1.5 inches inside of that little tiny bubble. There we go. Then I'm going to let go. So now, based on my guidelines, I know that this right here is going to be a stamp. This right here is going to be a pattern, maybe pattern paper that I cut out. And this right here is going to be my journaling or my text, which I can add into the spot using a text tool. The nice thing is because I have these guidelines, I can actually click on the guideline and drag my text box out in order for it to stay within the bounds of those two guidelines. I can use that to help me create my text box. Most likely though, for myself, I would probably not. I would probably have it be a little bit less than all of the spaces, right? So it goes inside of the box without interfering with the lines. But that's that. So let's get rid of this text box, and then you can see how the guidelines look here. Now I can also create another one. Let's do the exact same size, and let's pretend that I want this to be 2x2 squares, which would be 6 2x2 squares. So first I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to click and hold inside of the ruler and drag down a guideline until we get to the 2-inch mark. We are there. And then I need 2 of them that will be vertical lines. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag until I get to the 4-inch mark, which I passed. Almost there. 4-inch mark. Okay. And then I'm going to grab another one and place this one at the 2-inch mark. Oh, I had it. And there we go. So now I have my 6 2x2 squares where I can add photos or journaling or embellishments or stamping, whatever I want into those boxes. But this gives me a very clear visual on what this is going to look like. So let's go back over to Photoshop Elements and do the same thing here. So for this one, I currently have the 6x4 journaling card or canvas here on my screen. I'm going to go up into the rulers, I'm going to click and hold, and then drag down my guideline and bring this to, let's do that same 2x2 squares, right? We're going to bring this to the 2-inch mark. And again, there's that little bubble that tells me the exact measurements that my line is currently at. I can deselect, and now I've got this line here in the middle. We can go over to the vertical ruler, click, hold, and drag our line until we get to that 4-inch mark right there. And then we can do one more, click, hold, and drag till we get to the 2-inch mark. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got those same 2x2 squares. One of the things that guidelines is most helpful for me on is if I have a journaling card that I want to add text to by printing it in, putting it through my printer and printing the text on there, but I don't have that card digitally. What I can do is take the physical card and measure out the spaces on the card to allow me to know exactly where the text would go. For example, let's say that we have a card, maybe it's one of the cards where the top portion of it is a pattern paper and the bottom portion of it is just white, kind of like the first card that we designed. I can measure from the top of the card down to the bottom of the pattern and figure out what that is. And let's say that measurement is 3 inches, right? Then let's go ahead and make a new one of these. Let's say it's 3 inches. So I can take my guideline from the top and drag it down to the 3-inch mark, which leaves me 1 inch here at the bottom for adding my text. I can then put my text box in there, type up my journaling, and now I know that when I print this canvas onto my journaling card, it's only going to add the text in that bottom section of white. Another example might be if there are color blocks, right? Maybe my card has 4 different color blocks in it and they are 1 inch apart, which I would know by measuring the distance on that physical card. So what I can do is add my 1 inch guidelines, and now I know section 1 for text is here, section 2 for text is here, 3 is here, 4 is here. And maybe in this card that I have physically but not digitally, maybe it has a number over here that says like story 1, story 2, story 3, and I don't want to necessarily print on that. Well, then I'm going to measure from the edge, the leftmost edge of my journaling card to the opposite side of where all the printed text is. And let's say that's, 3/4 of an inch. Maybe it's 0.75 inches. So then I can add my guideline at that 0.75, close enough, and I know that I should not start my journaling until after this guideline. So now I can add my text box here, 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 and here, if that makes sense. Okay, so what about if we have all these guidelines on here and we want to just quickly get rid of them? Like we don't need the guidelines anymore. There is a very fast way to do that. What you want to do is go to View, and down at the bottom there is lock guides and clear guides. So if you lock the guides, then they're going to stay in place and you're not going to be able to move them. Like I can no longer move the guidelines, right? It pops this up that says it cannot be performed because they are locked. And do you want to convert the locked background layer into an editable layer? Okay, so we'll cancel out of that. So I actually want to go and no longer lock my guides. We're going to unlock them. And then I can go to clear guides and it will actually take all of them away. So it's just an easy way to clear them off. Otherwise, you can grab one at a time and just bring them back up to the ruler and you can take them off that way as well. But clear guides is definitely easier to do. In the same way for Photoshop Creative Cloud, you would go up to View and there is also the lock guides and the clear guides. So I can clear them and now they are gone. Another thing that you can do with guidelines, and this will work for both Photoshop Creative Cloud and Photoshop Elements, is you can actually go up to the View menu and click on New Guide. When you click on that, it's going to bring you this menu that allows you to select if your guide is going to be a horizontal line or a vertical line, and then you can tell it exactly where to position it. So let's say I want it to be a horizontal line, and I want this to be positioned at 2.75 inches. When I hit the OK button, it's going to put that guideline exactly where I want it to go. So that's another really easy way to add a guideline and not have to drag it and try to get it exactly where you want it, especially if you have the precise measurement for where you want it to go. So for that one, that was View and New Guide. On Photoshop Elements, it's the same thing, View and then New Guide, and it's the same option. So I can do horizontal and I can position it at 3.25 inches, and then it will put it exactly where I want it to go. So that just makes things a little bit easier if you have those measurements. All right, friends, this is where I'm going to leave you for today. The rulers and guidelines are just a fantastic way to help you place things precisely where you want them to go. They're also going to come in super handy later on in the year when we talk about using Photoshop to plan out our layouts, to create almost a digital layout or a blueprint for what we want our layouts to look like in their physical form. So this is definitely something that I would love for you to practice. I would, for practicing these tools, what I'm going to suggest to you is to bring open a 6x4 canvas and create a layout with 6 of those 2x2 squares. I would try to do this by clicking and dragging the lines just to get used to that feeling. And then also try it with the creating a new guide and putting in the exact measurement of what you will need. Make that 2x2 card, or the 6x4 card with 6 2x2s on it. Another thing I would love for you to practice is to get out one of your physical journaling cards and to create a template for adding your text. So if your journaling card is a 3x4, then open up a canvas sized at 3x4 and add the guidelines in so that you could essentially put text in the middle and it would go inside the spaces on your physical card. If you have any questions about the tools that we talked about today, please leave those for me in the comments down below. I hope this encourages you to try out something new with your Photoshop programs, and I'm very excited to show you even more about how these tools can come in handy later on in the year. Next week, we are going to be finishing up our Photoshop Basics theme, which was our April theme, by talking about layers and how Photoshop uses layers as its main way of functioning and its main way of creating and editing, which I will go much more into depth on that next time. I will be back next week with that lesson in addition to a process video. So hopefully I will see you guys back here then. Until then, have a great rest of your week, friends, and I'll see you next week. Bye.